start sharing my screen?
I think it's dramaturgy and robots.
Yes, it
And
is.
is it something else? Mobiles?
No, machines.
Machines. Excellent. Yeah.
See if I can. I
Yeah.
got. Yeah. So, can I start?
Please start.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Carla. I'm currently an independent researcher and my background is in theatre studies. So I'll be analyzing robots and machines with a historical flair and from a dramaturgical point of view, not from a technical point of view. So it's historical background. It is true that automatas has been with us for a long time. The first systems date back to ancient Egypt or even Greece, and throughout the Middle Ages, the Renaissance, and the 19th century, we have a example of an automata, a walking man, the steam man, developed by George Moore. But I would like to start focusing on display. So this is a Rossum's Universal Robots is a play from the Czech author. I apologize if the pronunciation is not correct, Carla Capeto. And it's for the first time that the word robot is used, and it comes from the Czech word robota. It means slave, serf, is related with forced labor. And the plot kind of is a bit of a cliche for today's standards, but it was original for the time. So very simply, it's set on a fictional island, and there is a factory named Rossum's Universal Robots that fabricates robots for labor of all kinds, and they ship them around the world. At a certain point, the robots, just to make it very short, they rebel and they annihilate mankind. At the end, there is a little bit of a hope when robots start to kind of develop emotions on their own and they start falling in love with and it's implied they will substitute mankind. I must also mention that in the play, the robots are not mechanical creatures. They have been shown up in film adaptations as mechanical, but they are actually artificial from a chemical substance called protoplasm. So the themes go around man playing with science, creating life, playing God. Also reflects the impact of the technical and industrial revolution in society, the social unrest and the upheaval of the working class is also reflected. It has some influence with the Soviet Revolution that had just happened. The play was written just after that. But also in the early 20th century, like performance still is exploring the idea of the mechanical body. You have Oskar Schlemmer at the house that explore the relationship of body and space inspired by the technology and the mechanical body, and also in puppetry. And then we also have the Meyerhold in Russia, who developed a new acting system, and he investigated for a long time, but he also was very inspired by Taylorism and Fordism, but he also influenced from the Russian futurism and constructivism. So it's a very mechanical acting style. It's not naturalistic, breaks with that tradition, and the movements of the actors are very exaggerated, very mechanical-like, and also the set looks like a machine. And it celebrates the Soviet Revolution as well. It's like participating in society. So I'm going to fast forward a little bit because I'm going to select some examples. So in the 1960s, we start also to see sort of different type of performance. There is not a performance with actors or dancers, but with machines. So Jean Tigri has the Homage at New York. He created this sculpture made out of everyday objects like wheels of bicycles, and it's supposed to self-destruct. It was presented at MoMA. It was supposed to kind of get on fire, and there is a story about it that they called the security, and people got a little bit scared. It ended up being a very interactive experience, that's for sure. And obviously Namjoon Paik with robot K456. This robot was anthropomorphic. He performed in public spaces. He also had some performance with these robots with his collaborator Charlotte Moorman. And finally, I think this is quite a very important moment also in the history of robotics is Cybernetic Serendipity. The exhibition launched the debate between disciplinary crossover between computer science, cybernetics, and the art. It was also a prediction of the computer as a social and cultural phenomenon. There's a very long quote of Steve Dixon, but basically is pointing that out, that it predicted it was an early sign that technology was becoming democratic and more accessible and a popular phenomenon as well. Some examples of the works that were there. One of them is Colloquium Mobiles of Gordon Pask. Is an assembly of 5 automatons. They are male and female, and they communicate with each other, and they also establish a conversation and a performance. We also have Edward Njotovic with sound activated mobile, which is I don't have a video, but this sculpture reacts to the sounds of children, of people passing by, and it kind of is a performance that is reciprocal. The structure performs, but people start to perform to the structure. So, and then we talk about more the technology, what we see in Stellark and also in Marceli Antunes, which I will speak a little bit more ahead, is the extended body. We don't really have a robot, but we have mechanical structure attached to our own body, sort of a hybrid, post-human performance, and they kind of evoke a visceral relationship with technology and some a little bit painful as well. And I'm also very interested in the performing objects, not the anthropomorphic robots. And it doesn't look neither with animals, neither it looks with people. They have a specific type of their own body, are all making objects. They're not necessarily that meaningful, but they are given attributes from humans. So we have Petit Mal and Simon Penny, which interacts with the space around him, but also interacts with people. And he wanted to create a sense that he has an intelligent behavior. And then the image in the middle, Fish and Bird from Mari Velonaki, is 2 wheelchairs that can't really communicate with each other, but they are trying to send very intimate messages, and the visitors can't invade that environment. There's also robotic chair, which is a very simple performance, but it's almost like a loop. The robotic chair destroys itself, then reassembles, and then that process starts again. So this relates a little bit with, if I could just, read this quote. It's from Adrian Eatfield, he's a British dramaturg, and he says, "Dramaturgy no longer belongs to the theatre, not to dance theatre. It's a practice spanning on diverse disciplines and cultural sites. Whenever there is a performance taking shape, there is a set of dramaturgical questions being asked and a dramaturgical principles being tested." Oh, wait. Okay. So this leads me to Marianne Van Kerkhoven. In the early 90s, she participated in a symposium in Amsterdam, and she started having a discussion with people how drama and performance was changing, also as a sign of technological development and introduction of technologies in performance. But nobody really could pinpoint what is this new paradigm, what's happening with dramaturgical practice, how is this defined? So she came up with just a simple term, new dramaturgies, as opposed to the most traditional ways of doing dramaturgy. So it's almost like self-explanatory. She also analyzed a little bit later on from this the impact that the changes in economy and society and bit like neoliberal politics are changing the artistic production. She has a little bit of a pessimistic view on it, but she definitely opened a space for interrogating what is dramaturgy. So this is some of the current research about this field that is still expanding. And Kathleen Trenchigny and Bernadette Cochrane are 2, I'm not sure if they're leading, but they're doing quite a good job on this. So they have 2 publications. And they expand the theories of Marianne Van Kerkhoven in a way of rethinking dramaturgy and how does it fit in new days and how is it actually connect with other fields. So they characterize as post-mimetic because it breaks with the traditions of Aristotelian theatre or the traditional theatre. Is intercultural in the sense that there are an exchange of cultural values between artists, and they also consider that this exchange of values also is an exchange of skills and knowledge. So it is interdisciplinary as well because of that. And it's process conscious in the sense that dramaturgs, not necessarily is the person hired by a theatre director, they can actually take a very close part on the process and artistic development, and includes all the sectors, not just text, but whether it's image, whether it is scientific, whether it's the social aspects, whatever the performance he wants to focus on. So it doesn't really have any hierarchy between the elements of the performance. From this new view, there's Peter Eckersall. He also writes about new dramaturgies, but he actually takes to a step further, and he comes with new media dramaturgies. And he also starts to think about the robots as performers, and he will focus also on the materiality of these type of performances. So I'm going to analyze a little bit some narratives of everyday life in robots. So we sometimes kind of find these videos of Boston Dynamics on social media, and I have seen it, people reacting for quite some time. And it's quite disturbing. They feel like they're being abusive to the robots. They shouldn't do this. I think the comments are a little bit as a joke. Obviously, they're not thinking that the robots are going to get revenge or anything. But there's other examples. For example, I don't know if you remember, but Opportunity was a rover that was doing investigation on Mars. It was supposed to be there for 90 days, but it stayed for 15 years. In 2018, it couldn't survive a sandstorm in Mars, and actually people started feeling very sorry and humanizing Oppy, like it was a person lost in there. And obviously, in early 2019, NASA declared that Oppy was no longer, and there was outpouring message, thank you. But I think this also connects with the fact that there is a bigger research associated to it, and people are very passionate about Mars exploration, and that actually influences the empathy they feel for this robot. And then there's these other ones that sometimes they sense a little bit like they're strange, they're eerie, they're scary. Not everybody finds them scary. Some people kind of a little bit put off. Masahiro Mori tried to tackle this with the hypothesis of the Uncanny Valley, that whenever there's something that relates too much like a human, it will have a drop on empathy, and therefore this sort of aversion and drop of empathy. But these robots, even though they are very commercial, they have been used in performances, and these are a few examples. They have robots from Blankly, and the particular image that I chose is when she's using a now robot, which is pre-programmed, is a moment where the dancer kind of shares a performance with that robot. It starts like almost like teaching him to dance, and then they are dancing together. The whole performance also tackles issues like labor, how again they relate to labor, but she's not very pessimistic. I think she wants us to reflect what kind of relationship between human and robots are shaping culture, what is their role in modern society, how do we relate to them, how do they relate to us. And then you have Sayonara from Orizerata that is actually focusing on themes of loneliness and how these robots could be offer some sort of company or empathy towards us, comfort us. So Sayonara is a robot that is supposed to comfort the dying woman, and he also has an eye worker and uses a Mitsubishi Wakamoto robot, which is supposed a robot to serve for domestic tasks. There's a moment in that performance that robot established a moment of empathy with the owner by being insensitive or talking within insensitive subjects. And I find this example very interesting, which is the existence of professional robots for hire. So this is robot thespian designed by Engineering Arts, and you can rent, and they're probably very expensive, but you can rent it for performances. So they have been already thinking about a specific type of robots just for acting. And I'm back on non-humanoid robots, and I'm back to this installation of Mari Velonakis. It is. Sorry. Sorry. Am I up to the time? Well, this is just a performance that is established between the two robots, and they kind of like play with each other, because they're sending messages, they're trying to establish a contact, and it becomes an obstacle. Ecclesall actually points out that this is a new mode of subjectivity. It's not just us projecting them on the robots. They are becoming, start having an agency on their own. They're becoming performers on their own right. So it leads me very quick. I'm going to Systematurgy. So Systematurgy was a methodology created by Marcel Yantunes, where it compiles all the principles of his performance, and it reflects how it works, and how these systems of robotics, of software, actually is all integrated in the fabric of the performance, not just like text. It includes everything, from drawing, from collaborations with technicians. And I established a relationship with what Marcel Yantunis does with the research from new dramaturgies, because it is also post-mimetic. It breaks with the traditions of performance in the traditional theater. It's interdisciplinary and also intercultural, because he also reflects about his cultural values and his cultural background as well. And process conscious, because everything in the performance is important, from the relationships that he established, from the collaborations with people, until the design, and the drawings and the text, video, everything. So, and he focused a lot of materiality as well. This materiality is very important for the performance, which also taps into what Peter Eckesal speaks about the materiality of robots. So as a conclusion, it's why all this matters. I think because robots have been around for quite some time with a performative potential, it's a dramaturgical look at perspective on it could strengthen our understanding of how robots impact culture, art. How can we establish a exchange knowledge between the community and artistic communities, and understand robots as performers different than humans, and how these collaborations also can come together. There's always points in common, even though, for example, in Systematurgy is a very specific type of work. It kind of relates to other investigation as well. So some of the investigation I've done. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Carla. That was a wonderful run through of the whole dramaturgy of robots. Tell me something.
Yeah.
Where are you? I mean, this is your subject.
Where am I based?
What I mean, no. In terms of robotics, are you designing one? Are you creating one?
Well, this comes from my PhD research, but I was not really focused on robots. I was more focused on the materiality of space, and a little bit working with sensors. I'm not a designer, but I've worked and I collaborate with other artists in robotics. And when I was doing my PhD, I came across these theories, and I was like, this is interesting, because it's really, really sometimes hard to break into the conventions. And some people are very convinced that dramaturgy is for text and literary aspects of theater. So, but finding this research was really inspiring. So, and I found out, I'm just going to expand this branch of the robots, because I think they have become, they're probably not going to substitute human performers, but they were going to perform with us. This is what I see. Yes, some companies will use mainstream robots, very expensive, but I see interesting collaborations of artists actually making their own. You don't have to be super, you can actually do basic robots for performance, marionettes. They've been here around, and they connect with all these systems and or traditions. So yeah.
Thank you very much. I always remember going back way into the past, that famous exhibition that you talked about, Cybernetic Serendipity. And I amazed all my friends at EVA. I think it was only last year that it celebrated its anniversary. I actually went to the opening of that exhibition in
Oh
London.
wow.
I believe it was in '68. I mean, I know you can guess from that how old I am, but I'm not trying to hide anything from you.
Yeah.
It was every bit as wonderful as you indicated, particularly Gordon Pask's amazing,
Yeah.
which you would have read about in detail.
Yeah, he has also worked for Cedric Price, Fun
That's
Palace, and he
right.
tried to create a dramaturgical
Yeah,
proposal for, and it's very interesting as well. So
absolutely.
yeah,
And
it's very interesting.
some of their theories are now, and only now, being put into practice. I
Yeah,
also knew Cedric Price, by the way.
yeah.
Anyway, thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome.
For your
Yeah,
talk.
thank you.
It was wonderful.
Yeah.
Thank you. I think we have the next speaker ready. In my list, she's called Anastasia